But it's not how much you have, it's how much you give. And success is living your life with integrity and purpose. The lesson number 2 was to make your own luck. Success comes from persistence, determination and hard work. If you pursue your dreams, you'll find that many times the door will be slammed in your face. But the best thing to do is dust yourself off, think of a new approach, politely knock on the door again, and hopefully have a big smile on your face and a good dose of youthful enthusiasm to try again. One illustration was during the federal election last year. We'd recognised that action on climate change was falling off the political agenda and that it needed to be on that agenda if we were going to see action after the election. So our focus was, how do we get climate change consistently into the media throughout the campaign? The first 2 weeks, we sent out endless press releases, tried from all different angles to get in the media, but consistently the response we had was, youth isn't news, climate change isn't news, neither of the political parties are talking about it, so the campaign, we just can't report on that sort of thing. So we were stuck. Climate change was essentially off the agenda and it had become the elephant in the room with neither party discussing it. So we decided that if the media wouldn't come to us, we'd go to them. So the most logical answer to that question was to hire every elephant suit in Australia and get as many people ready to be deployed as volunteers in elephant suits at any time. We started tracking the Prime Minister and the opposition leader on Sky News and on Twitter, and we could track pretty effectively where they were going to be at any time. We then deployed our elephant-costumed volunteers to chase both of the leaders around the country constantly. So whenever there was a media pack or a media scrum asking them questions, there was an elephant literally in the room, standing next to them, also asking questions. One of my favourite memories of it is when the Prime Minister was speaking on a lectern like this to a press audience, and behind her is this great big glass wall looking out from the conference centre onto a park. And our elephant came up behind her outside the window and started jumping around in a cheeky sort of way, saying, "Julia, you can't ignore me anymore, climate change is too big an issue." And the national media went from our standing Prime Minister all together to move to look at our climate elephant. And the news that night was, what are we doing on climate change? And prompted journalists to consistently ask the question, Tony or Julia, the climate change elephant is here again, what are you doing on climate change? So the climate elephant became a little bit of celebrity, as described by The Age, on the trail, getting hugs from the Prime Minister, pats from Tony Abbott, and on election eve, the Prime Minister tweeted the climate elephant, offering to meet after the election if she was elected. And indeed, we did meet with her 2 months afterwards, and then had the opportunity to put our views on why climate change is just so important to young people. So, make your own luck. Lesson 3 is to communicate, and I call this the kid with a great idea rule. In October 2005, a 7.6 magnitude earthquake hit northern Pakistan. In just 60 seconds, 75,000 people were dead and 3.5 million people were homeless. One of my friends, Andrew McLeod, had been working at the United Nations, and he flew straight into Islamabad to administer the relief effort as the United Nations Emergency Coordination Centre Chief Operations Officer. In the first few days when he was there, he was approached by a 21-year-old Pakistani volunteer. The young man said, "You're not using our brains." Andrew said to him, "Well, I don't want to use your brains. I want you to connect the telephone lines, get the pens, run the errands. That's what you're here for." But the 21-year-old volunteer persisted. He said, "No, I really want to use my brain. I want to help." Andrew, in the style of perhaps many Australian managers, said, "Okay, genius, if you think you can work this out, I'll give you our biggest problem. We've got 3.5 million people, they're homeless, and we've got 6 weeks until the onset of the Himalayan winter." This is the question that all of the experts were struggling with. They just didn't have a solution. The next morning, the young volunteer returned, and he had a solution. What he'd noticed was that the earthquake hadn't vaporised people's homes. It had actually collapsed them. So there was wood and corrugated iron and other building materials lying on the ground in lots of communities across Pakistan. So he had this idea, what if we could build just one warm room in a community and we could house lots of people there in the evenings? And Andrew heard this idea and had the humility to say, wait, this might just work. And it did work. With the UN relief effort and the Pakistani army, what they did was build 400,000 warm rooms across Pakistan that kept 3.5 million people alive through the Himalayan winter. So there's a couple of lessons here for us. The first is to have the courage and the strength to put forward your ideas. Never assume that the person with the title or the uniform knows what they're doing or has the answers. And the second is to have the humility to know when someone has a really good idea. So that's the kid with the great idea rule. But the most important lesson of all, for all of us, is that you're graduating at a critical time in human history. You have to work out what it means to be a human being at a time when the collective demand for the Earth's resources outstrips our planet's capacity to sustain us. The natural processes that provide us with clean water, clean air, a regulated, healthy climate, waste decomposition, crop pollination, and so much more are under threat. For too long, we've thought of ourselves as being separate from nature, when in reality, our health, prosperity, well-being is intimately tied to the health and well-being of our environment. The World Wildlife Fund's Living Planet report last year, which considers all natural systems, found that by 2030, humanity will need the capacity of 2 Earths to absorb the carbon dioxide waste and keep up with natural resource consumptions. And despite looking around the universe for perhaps a second planet, it's not looking like we'll be able to go there anytime soon. So scientists and science graduates have a crucial role to play. Firstly, scientists are pioneers and explorers. Through research, they discover new ways of doing things that we've never dreamt of before. They enhance existing solutions. So whether it's in energy, transport, agriculture, the vast array of avenues for scientists to contribute are vast. Secondly, it's in adaptation. There will be impacts on communities because of climate change and because of other ecological and sustainability issues. So nurses, health science professionals, psychologists are going to be critical in helping communities adapt. And thirdly, scientists are interpreters. Scientists can explain the world to the rest of us and tell us what is the message that nature is providing us with. In the 20th century and early 21st century, scientists from a wide range of disciplines, from biology to ecology, earth science, marine science, and so many others, have amassed a staggeringly comprehensive picture of a changing global climate. Not in the future, but since the Industrial Revolution, they can map how the climate has changed. And there's also been substantial modelling done of the future impacts. Scientists have drawn together this vast language of scientific disciplines to provide us with a clear message. The way we're doing business is damaging the planet to such an extent that we will no longer be able to do business. So there are 2 challenges for scientists within interpreting what they see for the greater community. The first is communicating effectively. Scientists are generally not trained to deliver communications around scientists, but I anticipate that these graduates have been. And that is something that the scientists of today that are out there working in climate and other fields could really do with some help. The second is that the reality of the science is profoundly challenging to our current status quo. The success of our economy has relied on cheap, accessible energy. Scientists have a remarkable history of challenging the status quo with revolutionary ideas. We just have to think to Galileo, often described as the father of science, who championed the view that the Earth was not the centre of the universe, which we all take for granted now. But that was profoundly challenging at the time. Today, by simply observing the evidence of climate change, many scientists have come under consistent attack, including death threats, salacious and spurious reports in the media, and constant emails and letters of personal attacks. For from my observations, the scientists have been some of the bravest people on this issue, willing to stand up and tell the truth and have the courage to put out their ideas and be true to their principles. It's in that context that today you graduate. 1,000 fresh perspectives on the world. This decade will be critical for all of us. Science will have a critical role and you will have a critical role. There has never been a more important time to be involved in the sciences, as interpreters, as explorers, as teachers, as implementers, and as adapters. There's never been a more important time to work collaboratively across disciplines, across borders, across communities, across cultures, fathers, mothers, the young and elders. So be bold, be brave, do something that matters, make your own luck, communicate your ideas, don't wait your turn. It's your future, so take it. Thank you.
Well, Amanda, now it's my turn to say wow.